Welcome music lovers to the Reggie Harris concert. He's a gifted storyteller, songwriter, lecturer, and singer. Appropriately, one of our prizes at this evening's intermission is Reggie's latest CD entitled On Solid Ground. On this CD, he sings some of his originals, such as On Solid Ground and the song It Is Who We Are. In addition, songs like John Lennon's and Paul McCartney's All You Need Is Love and John Prime's Hauntingly Beautiful, Hello in There, Who Knows, we may even hear it tonight. Also, at the end of the show, you will have a chance to interact with Reggie in a question and answer format. I'm George Mack, one of the members of Music on the Delaware board. A little later, or in fact, you probably saw her already tonight, we'll be meeting Renee Hardenkamp, a member who keeps things moving and keeps us on track. Let me tell you a little bit more about the musical performances that are coming up in May, June, and July after this evening's highly anticipated show. On Sunday, May 16th, 8 days from now, we have our last coffee house of the season, a virtual concert with a local band called Blue Tonic, starting at 6. Next, on Saturday, June 5th, a collaboration between Music on the Delaware and the William B. Ogden Library will present a free virtual concert entitled Grant Rogers and the Delaware County's Homespun Music, with musicians from the Canal Street Band beginning at 7 o'clock until 8. Then on June 11th, there'll be an additional special summer concert occurring at 3 p.m. outside at the Ogden Library, featuring the band Riding the Rails, who will present song and stories of the American Railroad. Well, let's get back to tonight's business. First, a couple of Zoom items. Use the chat button on the bottom right of your screen to greet others, or if you wish, ask a question of Reggie, but send the question directly to Renee. Renee's name is on the list of names. The reaction button also is on the bottom of your screen. Use it to send applause or thumbs up. Lastly, you should know that this concert is being recorded and will be available on our Facebook page. Now to our reason for getting together tonight. Primarily, we will hear a gifted artist known to some as an ambassador of joy, hope, and freedom. Reggie will revisit our history through songs we know and don't know, some written by Reggie. In this journey, we will learn about Reggie's history as well as our own. This portion of the concert is known as Family Revealed. So settle in to listen and perhaps sing along. Please welcome the inimitable Reggie Harris with virtual applause, wave, or by clapping, right where you are.
Thank you, George. And thank you all for joining me tonight and this wonderful opportunity to have some music, some joy, and to talk about community. I'm going to start with a song that has been part of my experience of community since I was about 3 years old. And that song says quite simply, "This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine." And it says that a number of times. So I'm going to invite you as the song continues to join me, and I'll give you a couple of hints. So if you have a tasty beverage close by, you might want to just take a sip and lubricate your throat. If you're sitting with someone, you might want to turn to them and say, "I can't wait to hear you sing." And the song goes like this. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Let's sing that again. Well, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Well, way down in my heart, I'm gonna let it shine way down in my heart. I'm gonna let it shine way down in my heart. I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Well, now everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. This little light of mine, we said this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light, this light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Well, some say it's dark and we cannot see, but love lights the world for you and me. Some say turn around and just go hide, but we have the power to change the tide. Some say life is a sad old story. We see a world that's bound for glory. The real power is yours and mine. Let your little light shine. Well, now this little light of mine, you say. Well, now, hey, now, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Little light, this light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, 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 let it shine. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much. And I see you clapping and I saw you singing. It is such a pleasure to be with you here tonight and to share these songs. And I will have to tell you that I thank George for that wonderful introduction. I have been singing for most of my life. As I said, my mother told me that I first sang at 3 years old. I don't remember that moment, but I do know that as long as I can remember, song has been a part of my life. It has been a very expressive part that has helped me to define in many ways who I am. I am a musician, a person of song. But I come from a community of people for whom that was true. The people that I grew up listening to and being around all had songs that expressed their great joy and their great longing. And I have been separated from part of my singing and my music making because about a month and a half ago, I got this little gift from the doctors when I fell on some black ice and fractured my wrist. I will tell you that it is making a lot of progress. I can now make a fist, which brings me a little closer to actually playing the guitar. But for this time, I've been doing concerts a cappella, or acapulco, as many people say. I will play you a couple of videos tonight during which I will actually play the guitar so you actually see that I can. But tonight we're going to have an experience that is not unlike the experience that I had when I grew up. There was a piano and an organ at my church, but so much of the music that I heard in my early years was a cappella. Groups of people sitting in a room together, singing without the company of instruments. Now, I love my guitar, and I love playing the songs that I can remember, but the essence of song is one that has been with us as human beings for thousands and thousands of years. My ancestors in Africa would sing at every possible moment. They sang to get up in the morning and to greet the sun, to greet the day. They sang songs about hunting and gathering. They sang songs about what was happening in the village. They brought that with them across the ocean. And of course, we know that human beings of all kinds are hardwired for story and song. So tonight we are going to celebrate song and story. And I'm going to start with a song that I heard first from the Georgia Sea Island Singers. I was riding in my car and hearing this song with the voice of Bessie Jones, that amazing songster, that woman who learned the songs as so many of us learned them, growing up in a community of song. She learned this from her father, who learned it from his father. It is one of the spirituals. The spirituals, those sorrow songs, as Frederick Douglass called them, the songs that came out of the experience of slavery. But they were not all sorrow songs. Many of them, and some of them I will do tonight, were songs of, as we call, aspiration. They were songs that were singing people into a new way of being. Many of them were used on the Underground Railroad. Many of them were used to remind people that they could reach freedom. And this song, which comes from the Georgia Sea Islands, is called Sheep, Sheep, Don't You Know the Road? Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, don't you know the road by the singing of the song? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Don't you know the road by the singing of the song? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, now, don't you know the road by the praying of the prayer? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Don't you know the road by the praying of the prayer? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, yes, my Lord. I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, don't you know the road by the clapping of the hands? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Don't you know the road by the clapping of the hands? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, now, don't you know the road by the going on home? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Don't you know the road by the going on home? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Sing it with me. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, yes, my Lord. I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Now, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Little David, play upon your harp. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Little David, play upon your harp. Hallelujah. Little David, play upon your harp. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Little David, play upon your harp. Hallelujah. Well, I don't know, but I got told the streets of heaven are paved with gold. I'm gonna put on my glory shoes. I'm gonna walk that mighty fine road. A little David, play upon your harp. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Little David, play upon your harp. Hallelujah. Well, don't you know the road by the singing of the song? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Don't you know the road by the singing of the song? Yes, Lord, yes, my Lord. I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, yes, my Lord. I say, sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, my Lord, I know the road. Sheep, sheep, don't you know the road? Yes, Lord, I know the road. Well, I say, yes, Lord, I know the road. Oh, well, I say, yes, Lord, I know the road. Oh, well, I say, yes, Lord, I know the road. Yes, Lord, I know the road. The sorrow songs, the songs that rose out of that devastating time, people finding themselves in bondage. And of course, the songs of the Underground Railroad lifted up. They were songs that people composed in community. They were songs that came out of the experience of hearing the stories of others. We learn so much from hearing each other's stories. Those who found themselves in bondage, those who came as they say, people with no luggage, those who were in the states after the northern states had gotten rid of slavery slowly, the numbers of people began to grow. They knew that song would inform them, would remind them that they were not slaves. They were people in slavery. A very different thing for all of us as we realize the gift that the spirituals give us is that they help us to remember that regardless of what your situation is, if you acknowledge it and you make determinations, and of course, if you have some allies who will help you in your quest, that freedom can actually become real. But before they got there, they had to sing other songs. Sometimes I feel like a motherless child a long way from home. And this song, "Oh Lord, how come me here?" One of the early spirituals that people would sing to acknowledge the devastation of the situation they were in. They came and they wanted to remember that they had a great history. And suddenly they were here, and that history was miles and miles and miles away across the ocean. And in their sorrow, they sang, "Oh Lord, how come me here? Oh Lord, how come me here? Oh Lord, how come me here? Well, I wish I never been born. They took my children away. They took my freedom away. They treat me so mean, Lord. Now I wish I never been born. I wish I never been born. But as I said, the spirituals are not just songs of sorrow, because you can't live perpetually in the sorrow of the place where you are. No, they evolved by singing songs that reclaimed who they were. They sang songs that said, "This joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Well, this joy that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, the world didn't give it, so the world can't take it away. This peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me. Oh, this peace that I have, the world didn't give it to me. The world didn't give it, so the world can't take it away." And they heard the words of people like Langston Hughes, who said, "Hold fast to dreams. For when dreams die, life is a broken-winged bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dreams. For when dreams die, life is a barren field frozen with snow." The billowing sails, the tall ships came, bringing men and dreams and women and dreams. Heart to heart, hand to hand, together we began to build this land. Some were free hands seeking a greater freedom. Some were indentured hands hoping to find their freedom. Some were slave hands guarding in their hearts the seed of freedom. But one word was there always, and that word was freedom. And indeed, in my childhood, one of the songs that rose up was one that was used Well, they sang Go Down Moses way down in Egypt land because my ancestors heard the stories of the Jews being in captivity in Egypt. The masters would read those stories, or the masters' ministers would read them, and they would hear the story of people who were in bondage, and they would say, that sounds like our story. And so they fashioned that song. Go down, Moses, way down in Egypt land. Tell old Pharaoh, let my people go. But when they sang that song, they were not only singing about that biblical character who led his people to freedom, they were also singing about Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman, that young woman who was born in Bucktown, Maryland. And just recently, I read about last week that they have found the home of Harriet Tubman and her family in the area near Bucktown, the home where she lived after her father's master died. Her father actually worked for another master and lived in a different place. Harriet would go back and forth, but when she was a teenager, that master died and her father became a free man. And the family moved in together. It was a few years before she would decide that she was going to escape using the allies of the Underground Railroad like Thomas Garrett and William Still. I see some young faces on here who are probably learning about the Underground Railroad in school and learning about that network of people of different races, colors, backgrounds, social networks, people who believed in freedom, who said, in America, a nation founded on the principles of freedom, there should be no place for slavery. And so they bonded together, creating that great network of Underground Railroad houses the conductors like Harriet Tubman and John Brown and John Parker, those who took it into their own hands to go into slave territory and rescue, and many of the times they were using songs. Get on board, children, children, get on board, children, children, get on board, children, children, there's room for many a more. Get on board, children, children, get on board, children, children, get on board, children, children, there's room for many a more. But one of the songs that I remember as being one of the most loved and most known songs on the Underground Railroad is a song that I want to sing with you. It's a song that is in call and response and in chorus form. It's a song that also comes from hearing about those people in Egypt, and the song talked very creatively and very wisely in secret code. You see, that's one of the things that singing gave people, the ability to sing in a way that the masters did not understand. Because the masters often said a singing slave is a happy slave. They encouraged the people to sing. They did not always realize that they were singing in a whole nother language. They were singing this song, Wade in the Water, to remind themselves that indeed, when you walk through the water, you're covering your scent and your tracks. So the masters' searchers, the slave catchers and slave patrollers, using their tracking bloodhounds, could not necessarily find you if you waded in the water. They also reminded you that every day as human beings, we need water to drink. And so Wade in the Water reminded you that when you came to a stream or a river, well, you need to get yourself a drink so you don't dehydrate on your journey. And also, because fish live in the water and animals come to the water to drink, this song reminded you that on your journey, you might be able to catch some fish or catch some other protein, catch an animal coming to the water to drink. And it reminded you that many times the separation between a slave state and a free state was water. So we're going to sing this song, Wade in the Water. And I'm going to invite you to sing in call and response. I will be your griot for the evening. And I will sing a line that says, who were those children all dressed in red? Your answer is, God's gonna trouble the water. Now, I know many of you are probably saying, well, I didn't come on here tonight to sing, but you have to understand that I am a folk performer, and it says in my contract that I have to get people singing at least 2 or 3 times during any performance. So I'm afraid it's up to you. And I'm going to invite you again to just look at the person next to you and just kind of smile. And then don't look at them while they're singing, because they don't need you looking at them. They need you looking at me and being ready to answer that call that comes out. This is one of my favorite songs. I get asked all the time by young people in schools across the nation, what's your favorite song? And even though I've written hundreds of songs, and even though I have learned thousands of songs, I will tell you quite honestly, this song is one that I have sung over 10,000 times, and it never gets old. So sit up in your seats, your chairs, sit up on that sofa, take a nice deep breath in, and get those lungs ready, and we are going to set this song on fire. Actually, yeah. So, the chorus goes like this. Wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water, the wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. I said, who are those children all dressed in red? You say, God's gonna trouble the water. It must be the ones that Moses led. Say, God's gonna trouble the water. Well, who are those children all dressed in white now? God's gonna trouble the water. They must be the ones getting ready to fly. God's gonna trouble the... Sing it with me, say, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the... Sing it over, say, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, who are those children all dressed in blue? God's gonna trouble the water. They must be the ones that made it through. You say, well, who are those children all dressed in black? You know, God's gonna trouble the water. They ain't never gone back. Say, God's gonna trouble the water. Children say, wade in the water. Wade in the water. Children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble. Sing it one more time. Say, wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. I say, God's gonna trouble the water. You, God's gonna trouble the water. Children say, God's gonna trouble the water. Hey, God's gonna trouble. Sing it one more time. Say, God's gonna trouble the water. Oh, give yourselves a hand. Y'all are all right. God's gonna trouble the water. Well, I was around the water yesterday. I was out with a friend, and we were scouting some spots for a project that we're going to be working on, actually for one of the songs on my new CD. It's a song called High Over the Hudson, and it's a song that I wrote for Pete Seeger, the day after Pete Seeger died. And I'm actually not going to do that song tonight, but I will do one of the songs that I sang when I first got on the Clearwater. But I'm going to be doing a project, and I was just on the boat yesterday and meeting the new captain and just talking about sailing this next summer. As you know, the Clearwater Revival, some of you already know this, but will be taking place virtually again in June. And so many of us have sent in videos, and they'll be playing those videos in a 2-day festival that will go on. It's not safe quite yet for us to all gather down in the Hudson Valley and get on the boat and sail. Actually, getting on the boat and sail is probably the safest thing we can do at this time. But I was on the boat yesterday, and then going around the Hudson Valley and down to the Bear Mountain Bridge, and looking at that great river, the Hudson, that Pete Seeger and all of the folks at Clearwater worked so hard to clean up. And when I was on the boat, I've sailed on the boat a number of times, doing things like pumpkin sail, when we sailed actually from Albany, New York, all the way to New York City, doing pumpkin festivals all along the way. We used to sing some of the shanties. And one of the shanties is one that says, "So we'll roll the old chariot along, and we'll all fall in behind." As you know, on a sailing sloop like the Clearwater, you need all hands on deck when you have to raise that huge sail. It weighs so many tons, and so we would get together, and we would stand on either side, and the lines would come out, and we would all get on the line, and they would pick up the line, and then we would sing that song as we hauled that line up and raised that sail, and then set out on the journey to do environmental education on the Hudson. So then we'll roll the old chariot along, we'll roll the old chariot along, we'll roll the old chariot along, and we'll all fall in behind. And then we'll roll the old chariot along, we'll roll chariot along, we'll roll the old chariot along, and we'll all fall in behind. Well, now a little bit of wind, it wouldn't do us any harm. A little bit of wind, it wouldn't do us any harm. A little bit of wind, it wouldn't do us any harm. And we'll all fall in behind. And then we'll roll the old chariot along. We'll roll the old chariot along. We'll roll the old chariot along. And we'll all fall in behind. Well, now a little bit of sun, it wouldn't do us any harm. A little bit of sun, it wouldn't do us any harm. A little bit of sun, it wouldn't do us any harm. And we'll all fall in behind. And then we'll roll the old chariot along. We'll roll the old chariot along. We'll roll the old chariot along. And we'll all fall in behind. Well, now a little bit of food, it wouldn't do us any harm. A little bit of food, it wouldn't do us any harm. Hey, a little bit of food, it wouldn't do us any harm. And we'll all fall in behind. And then we'll roll the old chariot along. We'll roll chariot along. We'll roll chariot along. And we'll all fall in behind. Well, now a little bit of chocolate wouldn't do us any harm. A little bit of chocolate wouldn't do us any harm. A little bit of chocolate wouldn't do us any harm. And we'll all fall in behind. And then we'll roll chariots along. We'll roll chariots along. We'll roll chariots along. And we'll all fall in behind. Once more we'll roll the whole chariot along. We'll roll chariot along. We'll roll the old chariot along. And we'll all fall in behind. Belay! All fall in behind. Well, that verse, a little bit of chocolate, actually was a little inside joke, because on the sails down the river, whenever we got to Saugerties, we would notice that the crew would mysteriously disappear as soon as we hit the port. They would tie up the ship, and as we were getting ourselves together, they would just take off. And we learned later that there was a wonderful place in town in Saugerties called Krause's Chocolate. And the crew, well, knowing that there were going to be long, hard, cold nights ahead, would go and stock up on chocolate as one of their incentives for hitting the town. But of course, one of the things that we learned most from Clearwater is the power of community. So I'm going to end this first half with a song that I wrote for a conference that was taking place in New York City some years ago. It was a conference that was sponsored by the Open Center along with a wonderful place in Rhinebeck, New York called the Omega Institute, where I went for years and years and years. And they held this conference called In the Shelter of Each Other because they wanted to encourage all of us to think more about working to make community something that is celebrated. We live in a world that has celebrated the individual. And in that time, they were realizing that more and more of the societal norms are that people are looking out for themselves. And so they held this conference with some amazing speakers. Maya Angelou was among the speakers, and Ram Dass and Brother David Steindl Rast and Sonia Sanchez, the poet, and so many other incredible speakers who came to talk about the importance of having and celebrating community, working along with each other as those people on the Underground Railroad had done. I got a call from one of the co-founders at Omega, and she asked if I would write a song for that conference. And after struggling through a couple of verses and getting some inspiration, I wrote a song. The full saying in Gaelic says, "In the shelter of each other, the people live." I knew that if I was going to write a song about the shelter of each other, that it was going to have to be a song that people could sing. And so I'm going to show you a video of that song, and it will encourage you to, once again, pick up the singing. I'm living up to my folk music contract. And after this song, we're going to have a brief intermission, and then we'll come back with some more music and a question and answer. So I'm going to share my screen here. I invite you to sing along to this amazing song and see if you can impress the people you're there with you. Here we go. Oh, where did my video go? Well, let's try that again. Oh, I see where it went. Technology, it's a wonderful thing. I'll share. And here we go. This is a song that I wrote inspired by a Gaelic saying years ago. The saying is, "In the shelter of each other." And I wrote the song in the spirit of the spirituals, in call and response. So all you have to do is sing back to me when I sing to you. So let's try that. It goes like this. In the shelter of each other, of each other. In the shelter of our lives, we are open, we are open, we are dreaming, we are dreaming, we are hopeful, we are hopeful, we are wise. So let's try that chorus again. I'm going to lean on you a little heavier. Here we go. In the shelter of each other, in the shelter of our lives, we are open, we are open, we are dreaming, we are hopeful, we are wise. That chorus will come around again. You know that many times the weight of the world crashes in. We feel angry and afraid. We start to lose our sense of hope, our sense of connection. The isolation we have learned will not bring much in return if we truly cannot learn to live as one. Here we go. Right in the shelter, in the shelter of each other in the shelter of our lives. We are open, we are dreaming, we are hopeful, we are wise. You know that many times the pain of the world crashes in. We feel broken and betrayed. We start to lose our sense of joy, our sense of direction. And though our history remains, well, it's our actions we must change if we hope to heal our planet. You know that we must stand here, right in the shelter of each other, in the shelter of our lives. Yeah, we are hoping, we are dreaming, we are hopeful, yeah, we are wise. Listen together, right in the shelter of each other, right in the shelter of our lives. Yeah, we are hoping, we are dreaming, we are hopeful, we are wise. Yeah, we are open, we are dreaming, we are hopeful, we are wise. We are wise. We are wise. Indeed, we are. Indeed, we are. It's time for intermission.
Hey, George, you gotta unmute.
How do you do that? We hope you are enjoying the show. And if you want to send Reggie some appreciation, please find the virtual tip jar on your screen. And there it is. Music on the Delaware would like to thank all those volunteers who participated in creating this memorable show, which includes all those who serve on the selection committee, those keeping track of where we are going, videographer, those who work behind the scenes in marketing by creating, designing, writing, distributing, and in time archiving material. And thank you to those who strategize, watch the resources, and operationalize the organization. And without a pause, a special recognition to those who make the show a virtual show, our social media and video specialists, so that during this time, these folks have, during the pandemic, have indeed allowed the show to go on. I should note in this regard that MOD is hoping to reopen on September 18th at 7:30. We hope to see you there in person or online. And the next part of our show, which is always anticipated, is the announcement of the winners of our raffle prize giveaways. Renee, over the last few minutes, has been randomly selecting our 5 raffle prize winners. So please welcome Renee.
Thank you, George. All right. So we have some great prizes tonight. We have 4 winners, all of which will receive a decorative cup that's designed as memorabilia, celebrating over 20 years of bringing music to our area. And these cups are not for drinking, but they're for decorative purposes. And in addition, each winner will receive a Music on the Delaware magnet designed by As You Wish, which is located on West Street in our very own Walton, New York. So the 4 winners of these 2 prizes are, and I apologize for potentially mispronouncing, Peg Twasuntin. So Peg, congratulations, you're our first winner. We also have Frederick Chrislip, Cameron Buster, and someone who registered under the name M. Weibly. So I will be sending you all an email and asking for your addresses so we can ship these wonderful prizes to you. But we do have one grand prize tonight, and that is the 5th prize, which is Reggie Harris's CD On Solid Ground, which includes songs that you might hear tonight, like On Solid Ground, and It's Who We Are, and some surprises like John Prine's Hello in there. And another song written by Reggie titled High Over the Hudson, telling about Peter Seeger and his legacy. So this CD may arrive a little later at your home, just allow about 3 weeks for delivery. So our grand prize winner for tonight is Marcia Slosser. Yay, congratulations. Marcia, again, I apologize for the names, but congrats. Thank you all so much for registering and for coming to our show. I'm gonna take down the tip jar information for now, but I will put it in the chat function, so you'll have access to that. And please know that if you have any questions for Reggie at the end for our Q&A session, you can send them in the chat to everyone or directly to me. So without further ado, back to you, Reggie.
Well, thank you, Renee. And we are going to start with a video that I made about 2 months ago to help promote my new CD. It's called the CD is On Solid Ground, and I've been absolutely thrilled with the amazing response that it's getting. There's lots of airplay on folk and acoustic music stations, and also some wonderful reviews that are coming in. This song, It's Who We Are, is one that I was trying to write for about 2 or 3 years, actually. And it wasn't until I saw people streaming into the streets during the pandemic last year. It was an amazing sight to see after years and years of very limited protests. But people woke up in a very, very new way. The question gets asked all the time, who are we as a nation? And that answer, of course, is that we are a very complex and a very visionary experiment in community and diversity. And it hasn't been always easy. And we certainly know that it's not easy now. But when I saw people waking up and saying, wait a minute, we are more responsible for who we are than we thought. And I came upon the one phrase that really drives the back of the song, which is, but we can change. We may not like who we are now as we find ourselves once again such a divided nation, but we can change. And so, this video made here in New York at the Cohoes Music Hall, a historic site, is one that I'm happy to share. It's who we are, but we can change. In my heart, I do believe, oh, we shall overcome someday. It's a plague on the nation. It's all across the news, splashed up in color for all the world to see. Our leaders say they're angry. The people are confused, so I guess this just comes down to you and me. It's a universal struggle, one fed by vicious lies. We've all been bought and sold for someone's game. It's a mystical dilemma, it's a puzzle that defies our attempts to fit the pieces in the frame. So we stand before the mirror and we say, why? How did we get this way? It's who we are. Hey, it's who we are. Well, you can blame the politicians, you can blame your neighbors too. You can blame the founding fathers for what their mothers didn't do. Well, the answer is quite simple. It's not hard to recognize. It's greed, it's self-indulgence, it's the fear of compromise. And a lot of introspection, where the truth is known to be. It's our choices that betray us. It's the lie that says we're free. And we stand before each other. We say, why? How did we get this way? It's who we are. Hey, this is who we are. Hey, it's not the be-all or the end-all. Vision by design. It's gonna take a revolution, and we're running out of time. It's who we are. Hey, this is who we are. Oh, but we can change. Hey, yes, we can change. Hey, but we can change. Hey, yes, we can change. Hey, we can change. Take up the childhood. Oh, I know we hope to be, but we can change. Shape the future. Won't be easy, but we can change. Give up the notion. Run this race alone. Yes, we can change. Pinch up the truth, 'cause we can't do this on our own. It's in our hearts, it's in our hands, it's in our minds, but we can change. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, I do believe. Oh, we shall overcome someday. Deep in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome someday. The news came over the air tonight. Pete Seeger went sailing today. Set out on the Hudson about 9 o'clock, searching for new songs to play. Passed by Bear Mountain, making great time as the water slapped hard on the bow. At Storm King, he turned that boat into the wind, set the old Woody G on the prow. Now he's high over the Hudson, sails headed for home. High on the breeze as it cuts through the trees. Pete, you're not sailing alone. No, you're high over the Hudson. You've got one hell of a view. Now your battles are done, new voice begun. Pete, we're singing with you of times and rivers flowing. The seasons make a song, and we who stand beside her, we'll try to sing along. A troubadour's life has its ups and its downs. Of that there's so much that's been said. Pete spoke out for justice year after year, a leader who actually led. He sang out for freedom, he sang out for peace, taught through the power of song. Ahead of his time in all seasons of life, he kept us all singing along. Now he's high over the Hudson, sails headed for home. High on the breeze as it cuts through the trees. Pete, you're not sailing alone. No, you're high over the Hudson. You still got one hell of a view. Now your battles are won, a new journey's begun. Pete, we're singing with you. Odetta and Mary say, welcome, good friend. And Woody and Pete both agree that you lived your passion for 94 years and you lived it with integrity. Now we as your children and we as your friends must take up this mission of song. As Toshi yells out with a smile on her lips, hey Peter, what took you so long? And now he's high over the Hudson, sails headed for home. High on the breeze as it cuts through the trees. Pete, you're not sailing alone. No, you're high over the Hudson. You still got one hell of a view. Now your battles are won, a new journey's begun. Pete, we're singing with you, with you. And we who must join in can stand aside no longer. Now let the songs begin. Thank you. That's a song that I started writing the day after Pete died in 2014. I found myself that day in a classroom, a second grade classroom. A friend who was a second grade teacher, Amy Blake, invited Kim and I to come into the classroom that day, knowing that our dear friend had died and that the world was already in mourning. And we couldn't think of what we wanted to do that day to celebrate his life. We had just missed the opportunity the night before to go into New York City. We were traveling, and there were a number of people who were gathered around his bed and singing him out as he died. And we had missed that opportunity, and so we were thinking, what can we do? And my friend Amy said, why don't you come into the classroom and talk to my students about Pete and about your friendship and sing some songs. And so that's what we did. It is really what Pete Seeger would have done. He spent a lot of time going into classrooms and going to schools and encouraging young students to sing and learn about history. And it was there that a young student asked me where Mr. Seeger lived. And I said, well, he lived in a cabin that he built himself. It's a cabin that still exists. I said, you know, he loved the Hudson River and he loved living near the Hudson River. And he actually lived in that cabin for years and years with his wife and his family. The cabin sits on a hill high over the Hudson. And as soon as I said those words, I said to the teacher, could you get me a piece of paper? I need to write something down. And I wrote a few phrases that eventually became that song. Pete was such a remarkable mentor and a friend who really mostly taught by singing and by living. His statement to the world was of so many songs, but was one of collaboration and cooperation. One blue sky above us, one ocean lapping all our shore, one earth so green and round, who could ask for more? And because I love you, I'll give it one more try to show my rainbow race. It's too soon to die. That's one of his songs that went all around the world. And, you know, I remember constantly in these years since he passed that one of the things Pete always reminded me of was to get people singing. He said when things are at their worst, that's when you should be singing. And so it was that as I sat here in my living room here last year, having come home at, it was March 8th that I managed to get myself here. The COVID-19 was breaking out. The school that I had last performed at in Buffalo, New York, had closed right in the middle of my performance. And I came home and I sat and I watched the news as all of us did. And I began to feel that isolation creeping in as we were told that we needed to stay away from other people, that we needed to isolate ourselves to be safe. And as I sat and I watched a world come apart and feeling my own isolation, I began to think, what can I do? Well, very soon I started to work on doing some online concerts. And as I did, people just were so grateful for the opportunity to connect and to sing. I knew that the message that I had was one of connection and of endurance, of perseverance. And whenever I'm thinking of connection, endurance, and perseverance, I go right back to the spirituals. Because those are the songs that grounded me and that continually remind me that we can make it through the hardest difficulty. That we have the stuff in us to rise up and to take on issues and to work against hatred, and that we can persevere as those people who created those songs persevered. And they knew that they were not all going to make it to, as they called, the promised land, but they passed those songs along, and they kept passing them along until they reached me. And so as I sat here and I thought, what message do I have to say? A song came to me, a song that I felt very grateful to write and to begin to sing. It's a song I've shared with thousands of people from last April to this very day, singing the song to encourage us all to remember that in our community, in numbers, there is strength. That we don't have to go through this life, and we should not go through this life, and we really cannot go through this life thinking of ourselves as individuals. Because as finite human beings, we don't have the energy to endure through all the things that we face. And so the line came, we will not rest until the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. That's the perseverance and endurance. How do we get there? We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. So as my last song tonight, I sing this song because I know it to be true. And I sing this song because this is the message that rose up in me when I saw so many around saying, how will we survive? People have asked that question for thousands of years, and they were able to survive. How? Because in the shelter of each other, in the cooperation with each other, by working hard to become a more perfect union, we have managed over thousands of years to find a new way to create love, peace, and harmony. So I offer this song to you as I have offered it to so many in this time. And I invite you to sing the chorus, which goes like this. We will not rest till the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. ground. We will not rest till the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. Well, we will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. It's been a long, hard journey on a winding road. So many have gone before us. They carried a heavy load, but they went there singing as they made their way. Now it's in their footsteps we follow as we work today. We will not rest till the storm is over. Hey, we will not lay this burden down. Well, we will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. I know that you're weary. We all feel the pain. Sometimes the actions of the world will try your soul again, but I believe there's a better day and it's coming our way. That's why we're raising our voices as we work today. We will not rest till the storm is over. Hey, we will not lay this burden down. We will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. All around us there's hatred. All around us there's fear. Violence touches our lives and the message is clear. We mourn our martyrs. In our hearts they'll stay. Then we'll sing, we shall overcome and go on our way. We will not rest till the storm is over. We will not lay this burden down. Well, we will keep each other strong. We will love and carry on till we stand all together on solid ground. Till we stand all together on solid ground. Till we stand all together on solid ground. Thank you. Hi, George.
Trying to talk once again. That was wonderful. For fans who want to know more or hear more, you can go to reggieharrismusic.com. And we have some questions here. Reggie, if you're ready to go.
I am.
Okay. The first is, were you formally trained vocally, or did you gain your gift from singing with family and friends?
Both things are true. George, when I was growing up, my mother used to gather us in the living room, sometimes on a Friday evening, and she'd say, "Turn off the TV," and we would sing for a couple of hours, just all kinds of songs. And then I went to school, and of course, we had a lot of music going on in schools. So I sang all the way through elementary and junior and high school. I had a wonderful high school music teacher, Mr. Theodore Nietzsche, who had us singing all kinds of songs, classical and show tunes and spirituals and masses. And but then I took vocal lessons when I was in from about 10th grade until I graduated from high school from one of our local teachers. And over the course of years, I've also had some lessons off and on from some really wonderful vocal coaches and teachers. So it's kind of a mixture of growing up in a community that sang and learning by listening and learning by singing with others. But also I have had classical training and I've had some other training too. So I know technically how to sing, and I try to remember those lessons. They keep you out of bad habits and keep the voice vibrant.
Well, I know it's a little silly, but you can tell them that they did a good job. That's what people would share with me, I'm sure. Reggie, is there any way that you can, I guess, talk or maybe otherwise a little bit about the background of Hickory Hill, which some of the listeners wouldn't know anything about, but I know that you discussed it on Don Lemon's podcast, and I don't know what you could tell us in in a
Oh,
summary
I can
fashion?
actually tell you, and I can actually play it if we have the time.
Okay,
Um, the
that would be
background of
great.
Hickory Hill is that in 1992, my family had a reunion, and we didn't have a lot of reunions. My family was fairly spread out between Virginia and New Jersey and Pennsylvania. But in that year, we all gathered in Richmond, Virginia, because one of my relatives, Kay Bush Gray, had done our family genealogy. She didn't actually tell us that up front, but we got there, and she had reserved a couple of hours on Saturday afternoon, and she told us that she had, inspired by Roots, plunged into stories and then historical society records, and she had found that our family began on a plantation in Ashland, Virginia, 25 miles north of Richmond, and that we were the product of a woman named Bib Hanna, who was born on that plantation and who lived there for all of her life, and the master, Williams Carter Wickham, who owned her and 250 other people. And he and his wife owned 3,000 acres of land, and that's where my family began. The Hewletts began with 6 children being born to Bib Hanna, fathered by the master, Williams Carter Wickham. So armed with this information, I went home, I read through this booklet that she gave us, and I put the booklet away, but kept the story in my head as best I could. And in the year 2010, I was teaching at the Swannanoa Gathering, a music camp in Asheville, Virginia. And on a kind of spur of the moment, I shared that information with my class. I remember it was a Wednesday afternoon. And I had about a half an hour left, and I'd covered all the material I wanted to cover for that class. So I thought, what can I share with my class that would be of interest, that would talk about slavery and talk about these connections and still be on task? And I thought, oh yeah, I have that information. It's kind of like Sally Hemings and Thomas Jefferson and all of those families that came from masters having children by their slaves. So I shared that information, and as it happened, you never know, one of my students in the class, a woman named Fanny Oates, she came up to me after the class and she said, that's a fascinating story. But she says, I have another fascinating thing to tell you. I said, what's that? She says, I know that family. I grew up in high school, she said, in high school years, I had a best friend named Lisa Wickham, and I know she's part of that family. And I said, wow, that is incredible. A small world. She said, yeah, I haven't talked to her in 30 years, but I would love to, I'd love to find her. I'm going to search for her. And if I find her, would you be interested in talking to her? Because I think she'd be interested. And I said, well, sure, why not? I had no idea that she'd ever find her. And a year went by, and I got an email from Fran, and she said, I found Lisa. She's living back in Richmond after years of being away. And we had a wonderful reunion, and I told her your story, and she wants to talk to you. And I thought, oh, wow, that's great. Hadn't expected that to happen. But she had information, and she said, she works from home. You can call her any day. And I took the number, and I thanked her. And then for 3 weeks, I thought, do I really want to make this call? Because, conversations like that, the Thomas Jefferson and Hemings people fought for, basically 200 years before they were willing to own up to it and actually talk to each other. And I thought, what kind of complications am I opening myself up to? But, we have to be courageous in this life, and we have to take the opportunities when we can face something like our past and see what happens. So I picked up the phone and I called, and I found this amazing, funny, engaging person who embraced me as a cousin immediately. As a matter of fact, when I called her, she said, where you been? You're supposed to call me 3 weeks ago. And I said, well, I'm kind of busy. She said, oh, yeah. She said, how old are you? And I said, how old am I? I couldn't imagine where she was going with that. I was expecting her to say, okay, so what proof do you have that we're really related? But that's not what she did. When I told her how old I was, she said, oh, that's good. I said, why is that good? She said, well, because when I was growing up, my cousins and I would fight. We didn't have a lot of cousins. But now, if I have you as a cousin, I'm 2 years older than you. I can boss you around. That's how our conversation started. But I finally went down. I met her. I stayed with her. Her brother George lived around the corner. He came. We had a wonderful dinner. And then she said, the property is not it's been sold, so it's not in the family anymore, but I know where it is. And if you have some time tomorrow, I could take you up there. She said to me, it's off the highway. It's a drive down a dirt road, and we'd have to hop over a small fence and walk on somebody else's property. And I thought to myself, oh, gee, let's see. So we're going to go up I-95 and get off the road and drive down a dirt road into the middle of nowhere, hop over a small fence on somebody else's property. I'll be doing all this with a white woman that I just met and don't really know that well. And we're doing all this in the state of Virginia. What could go wrong? But that's exactly what we did. We hopped over that fence and we walked, and she showed me all the buildings and the gardens that were now in disrepair. And we went up on the porch of that house and we walked around there for about an hour and a half, experiencing both our past and our present. And out of that experience came the song Hickory Hill.
Well, and that's a tremendous opening for me. Can you play that, or does it?
You bet I can. I do that song in a program, a presentation that I do with my friend Greg Greenway, who is one of my partners in crime. And the show that we do is called Deeper Than the Skin. And this song is one of the centerpiece songs in that. So you'll see Greg as well.
And this is Hickory Hill, the plantation.
Oh, let's start that again. And I will make it full screen.
And the name of the plantation is Hickory Hill, right?
It is.
Having fields to the horizon, the ghosts of autumn catch the wind. Memories of those saints and sinners gather round to haunt us once again. Now we're finally here together, standing silent face to face. Secret family undercover, born of shame, saved by hope and grace. Hickory Hill, we're on hallowed ground, walking side by side, wondering what we found. Hearts break open wide across the great divide. I can see the questions in your eyes now that we are home again. They celebrate the grand illusion, and they write it up for all to see. But in that mystery of confusion, there lies a truth that might one day set us free. So now our stories come together across these fields of broken dreams. and the blood that binds us all together, oh, is indeed much thicker than it seems. Oh, Hickory Hill, we're on hallowed ground, walking side by side, wondering what we found. Hearts break open wide across the great divide, and you see the questions in my eyes now that we are home again. We are home again. Oh, Hickory Hill, we're on solid ground, standing side by side, wondering what we found. Hearts break open wide across the great divide. Can you hear those demons as they die, now that we are home again?
And we'll be coming back in a minute. Okay.
Right.
Well, thank you so much for that song. I consider it one of your great ones. You know, I enjoy it very much.
Thank you.
Which leads into, I guess we could call this the last question. I know you've written many songs, many of which I've never heard, but is there one or two or that you find the most personally satisfying that you could share with us?
Well, in truth, Hickory Hill is certainly one that would come under in that category. I think, you know, we tend to think of the songs that we've written recently that, you know, Hickory Hill, you know, was 2018. I actually wrote it in 2012, right after we had the experience. But, you know, there are so many songs. Most of the world hasn't heard most of my songs. There are some that come to mind. Song Freedom Road comes to mind, which was the song Rock of Ages, which was a song from an album that we did in 1991 that was really the song that changed my songwriting. It is a song, it was a song that really, I was beginning to really embrace the work that I now do with the Living Legacy Project, which is to take people on civil rights pilgrimages and talk to people about the lessons of the civil rights movement, talk to people about history in ways that open windows and doors for us to have those hard conversations that we need to be having now. Other songs, you know, that come to mind, you know, certainly most of the songs that I've written for the new CD, the song Standing in Freedom's Name, which is one that I'm very proud of because it really takes on that whole idea of courage. You know, Reverend C.T. Vivian standing on the steps of the local courthouse in Selma, Alabama in 1965, facing the local police chief, Jim Clark, who was known for smashing people in the face and throwing them into, you know, wagons, and dragged Amelia Boynton, a great worker for civil rights, down the street by the scruff of her coat. You know, a 30-ish-year-old woman who was an advocate for civil rights. He just grabbed her and dragged her down the street in front of everyone in the middle day. And here is C.T. Vivian standing up to him and pointing his finger in his face and saying, "We will register to vote. You will not stop us forever. We are willing to be beaten for democracy." And so in the face of that, and looking at that last year as the police were beating people and beating peaceful protesters, I wrote a song, Selma, Alabama, 1965, a group of people standing in the rain. They came for resolution that was missing on their lives, came to in the terror and the pain. For 100 years of hatred, abuse and savage lies, caught up in the segregation and despair. They came in hope, believing that the world would hear their cries. Then one man stuck his finger in the air. He said, we're willing to be beaten. We will never go away. Did you hear what we had to say? We will never go back. We will never go back. Got our eyes on the prize. Got this train on the track. We are here in freedom's name. And there's nothing you can do to make us wear those chains again. Of course, this is when I miss my guitar. But, writing songs like that, writing songs like, well, I'm sitting here thinking about the world today. Oh, glory, hallelujah. Got a lot on my mind, but I'm blessed to say, glory, hallelujah, I'm ready to go. We're all sitting in the world turned upside down. Oh, glory, hallelujah. It's gonna take some time to turn it around. Glory, hallelujah, I'm ready to go. Ba-da-da-da-da. Oh, mama, it's a long, long road. You got me singing with the seed you sowed. It's up to me, so come what may. Glory, hallelujah. Glory, hallelujah. It's a righteous day. Glory, hallelujah. I'm on my way. So there are many songs. There's a song I wrote years ago called Keep the Dream Alive. The catalog of songs have come. I've written love songs. I've written songs in the shelter, songs about community. So I'm just one grateful human being that I have this gift, and that from the time of the beginning of April through September, I wrote 8 songs that are all on the new album, and they join a legion of other songs. I wrote a song called Resurrection Day after my liver transplant in 2008, which was a chronicle of my own struggle of 13 years of liver illness, but then receiving a new used liver, I should put out. It was a 43-year-old man who died, whose family donated his organs. And so that became one of my signature issues, to encourage people to become organ donors. And that song, Resurrection Day, has been used in that way. But the amazing thing about songs is that they have their own lives. So even though I wrote Resurrection Day to celebrate the fact that with my liver transplant, I got a second chance in life. That's why I wear this turtle. It reminds me every day to be grateful for the gift that I got, and also to remember to keep things balanced and don't be in a hurry. But I wrote that song, and I realized that a lot of people, as I perform it around the world, they use it to tap into things in their lives that have derailed them and caused them to either come near death or have relationships end. My town used it in 2010 when we had Hurricane Irene devastate the town, and we had to come back from having 10 feet of water in our stores and our homes, and devastation all around. And so I'm very grateful to be a songwriter who writes from a human point of view, that takes on issues, but always with an idea of connecting us to an idea of hope, and an idea that we can persevere if we stick together.
I personally enjoy the complexity of some of your songs, because usually songs are not complex. So I really enjoy yours.
I can't help myself. Life is complex. I have to write that way.
Great. You've talked quite a bit to us about your visions and things. Is there anything that you would like to say to your fans that we could share?
Well, I would like to say that it's important in this time to remember that spreading the light depends on us. We have so many messages going through our nation and our world these days of negativity and people trying to do things for their own benefit. not caring about their neighbor, or that we are part of a global enterprise where everything that we do is connected. Everything that we do has impact all around the world. So I would just say that, sometimes it gets really difficult to keep a positive view of the future. The only way that we do that, I think, is one, by singing or listening to music, and by sharing our stories with other people. Share those things in your life that are the bright spots, things that you're working on, things that you see that are positive. I think we, as Pete Seeger wrote in that, when he wrote the verses for This Little Light of Mine, some say it's dark and we cannot see, but love lights the world for you and me. So I would just like to say to all, we need to love a little harder. We need to love a little more efficiently. We need to love ourselves. And we need to remember to give ourselves a break, because we can't take on all the issues of the world by ourselves. Some days you got to take a little time off, read a book, watch a ball game, watch a movie, sit with those you love and tell them that you love them. And then listen to some good music and get your brain to reorient so we can go back to work.
Thank you so much, Reggie. Thank you for coming, and I hope we stay in touch, and I will be in touch. And have a great night, and thank you.
Thank you. Been a pleasure.